Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Tommy Waller. I'm the head of HaYovel. I'm a Christian Zionist.
And I'm Kimberly Troup. I too am a Christian Zionist, and I am the director of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities U.S. office.
And I'm Sondra Oster Baras. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I'm the director of the Israel office of Christian Friends of Israeli Communities. So great to see you all back again. We have a wonderful topic for today. We're going to be talking about youth movements and summer camps, and talking and comparing a bit between how Christians do it and how Jews do it, and how this is all connected to Bible and Israel. So, you know what? I have a lot to say about this, but you don't want me to get started. You guys want to get started. So, how about one of you guys start and tell us, and I'm curious, what do you do? How do you inspire kids? What kind of fun stuff do you have for kids in the summer?
Well, I think for me as a kid growing up, I think I always wanted to go to camp. Like that was like my dream was to go to camp. We never went. I think our church just didn't offer it. But today, I've sent my kids to camp. Generally, youth camp for Christians is just like a week long, and they go do fun stuff, swimming and kayaking, and horseback riding and zip lining, and then they have some kind of a devotion kind of to start the day, and maybe at the end of the day sit around the campfire, tell Bible stories. But it's not I don't know. When I've watched and I've seen B'nai Akiva and I've seen the Jewish youth camps, we're not as inspirational, or we're not as foundational, I think. I think another part of Christian summers, everybody knows, is Vacation Bible School. I when my kids were little, they're grown up now, but when my kids were little, that's what you do. You go around to every single church in the neighborhood, and you're like, okay, when is your Vacation Bible School? And when is your Vacation Bible School? And when is your Vacation Bible School? And then you sign your kids up, and then you go and take and drop them off for a couple of hours every morning for 2 or 3 weeks at 2 or 3 different churches, and
What,
just
it's
give the
like a
kids
day
something to
camp
do.
kind of thing? It's just
It's
a few
just a
hours during the day?
Yeah, it's usually just a couple of hours during the day. I don't know, Tommy. What kind of summer camp or vacation Bible school did you ever do?
Yeah, I had a couple, and I was just thinking about it. We had a vacation Bible school when I was young, very young, and it was good. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and really the vacation Bible school was where we learned how to use our Bibles. We used to have sword
Mhm.
drills,
Yes.
and I was, obviously very competitive, and they would give us the scripture and the verse, and the first one to find it would step out front. Um, it was kind of it may seem simple or silly or whatever, but it really taught me how to find things in my Bible, because I learned the
Mhm.
books of the Bible. We learned all where they were at, and so there was a lot of, when I was growing up. I don't know if it is that way today, um, but there was a lot of craft stuff too and everything. But I
Yep.
remember learning a lot, because at the end of the vacation Bible school, we had a program, and I never will forget this, a funny story. And it's really kind of strange. It's kind of a strange even looking at today, because when I was probably, I want to say, 8 years old, I was very interested in the biblical characters, and we were looking at the biblical characters during that week, and the lady who was teaching my class during Vacation Bible School was asking each one of us to pick a character that you want, and to talk and just give some stuff, talk about his life, his story, or whatever. Well, I picked Joseph. I really like Joseph, and so I picked Joseph, and it was my turn at the end, at the big presentation. All the parents were there. Everybody was there, just beaming over their children, and it may have been the most embarrassing night of my parents' life, because I got up and I began talking about Joseph, and probably about 45 minutes later, I sat down. I sit down, and everybody's just like, "Oh my goodness, what just happened here?" And my mom is like face down, like. Right. And and I don't even know, but I was just so engrossed in the story. But I was telling it, But here today, I am here on Mount Gerizim. Right below me is Joseph. So Joseph has always been a part of my life from the beginning till right now, and so it's just very interesting. But there was always, I just thought about this, but when I was in junior high and high school, I was part of I was an athlete. And so we had Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We had a camp in the Black Mountain, North Carolina every year. And sometimes I would go for 2 weeks at that camp. And when I got into high school, there were times, I mean, one time I was even a counselor. And then throughout college, stayed a counselor every year for that. And it was always very inspirational. A lot of inspirational speakers, a lot of athletes from football teams and basketball teams, and even the notable people were involved back then. I don't know how it is today. I haven't kept up with it, but it was a really good. It was just boys. They had a girls' FCA camp and a boy. Back then, it was just for young men, and then they had another camp, I think, for young women. But it really kept me, on a right track, helped me to really be who I am, in front of people. And I didn't get the opportunity to give a Joseph story during that camp, but it is interesting, very, very interesting how your life kind of swings back around and you get the Joseph story. Boy, I could have added a lot more to it, Sondra, to that story. I could have gone probably a couple of 3 hours,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, Tommy, what, because you did go to camp, would you say that there are things that got planted in you during that camp that you still, affect you today, or, that it was a foundational, pivotal time in your Christian walk or in your faith?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, the main thing, and I think probably we would all agree, a lot of times the camp experience really depends on the leadership of the camp.
For sure.
And the counselor. I hear Jews even here while I'm here. My Jewish counselor at camp really inspired me. And that one person, and like some of these organizations may not be, but that one counselor really brought me to Israel, got me on this track and brought me to Israel. And I think that to see, especially at FCA, there were really zealous men that were inspired me, and really helped me to see that I didn't have to. I could live a godly life and a godly standard, and they set that example for the most part. So, yeah, it was. I would say it was a really good experience for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I know with my own kids, when they were a little bit littler, younger, preteens, and sent them to camp, and they didn't want to go. No, Mom, don't send us. We don't want to go. We don't want to go. We don't want to go. And I'd make them go because I'm like, no, you're going. And I think as parents, it's like a little bit of that pushing them out of the nest, pushing them out of their comfort zone, and you are trusting them to the counselors. I mean, I think just talking about this whole subject and counselors and summer camp and what do we do, and those that have this calling on their life, and I do believe it is a calling, to really pour into kids. As parents, we're kind of trusting them with our most precious possession, saying, okay, guys, put something into them, because it's an environment, I think. And when I think about camp, that's what I think about it. It's this special environment where they're out of their comfort zone, they're out of their routines, and they're having to experience all these new things, sometimes for the first time on their own or without, siblings or without parents. And so they're building friendships, but they're also like exploring and a little bit to explore. So I just, that's a fun part. I mean, I remember, Sondra, my first trip to Israel, my first few trips, your kids were still little and teenagers at home. And very much so, Friday nights, be there, have Shabbat dinner, and then all the teenagers disappeared. They all split. They were all gone. It's like, well, where'd everybody go? And where did they go, Sondra?
Well, they went to Bnei Akiva. And, you know, if I'm going to talk about summer camps, I really am talking about something that is a bridge between American Jewish experience and Israel. And for me, Bnei Akiva really says it all. Bnei Akiva is a religious Zionist movement, and it is international. It's centered in Israel, but there are branches all over the world. In almost every place that there is a Jewish community, there is going to be a Bnei Akiva. And it is unique in that it is both religious, it's an Orthodox movement, but it is also very, very Zionist. And depending on where you are, where I grew up in a place that had a very strong Jewish community, and the Orthodox community, kids went to Jewish schools. We were already pretty committed to being Orthodox, but the Zionism we were not getting in school, okay, because we went to a Jewish school, but they were very Orthodox, but they weren't Zionists. And so, first of all, we got this Zionism from Bnei Akiva. But Bnei Akiva wasn't just the summer camps, it was also year-long activities every Shabbat in America, in Cleveland. We used to walk to Bnei Akiva at Shabbat afternoon, and for me, that was a 45-minute walk, and sometimes in the snow, you know, in the winter. But we walked. I mean, there were people who lived 5 minutes away. We lived far. Today, by the way, the Bnei Akiva is down the street from where I used to live. Because where I used to live was then just a few Orthodox Jews. Today, it's the center of the Orthodox Jews. So by the time I leave and I go somewhere else, and all of a sudden I come back to visit and I see Bnei Akiva was a 3-minute walk, but okay, whatever. But anyway, I remember my first encounter actually with Bnei Akiva was going to summer camp. I was 10 years old, and I went to the Bnei Akiva camp, which was then located in Wisconsin, and Wild Rose, Wisconsin, like this, you drive through these fields of corn and whatever they had there, and you get to this camp. And it was extremely rugged. We didn't sleep in tents. We had wood cabins, okay? But it was very rugged, nothing fancy about it. One of the things that was so special to me was Shabbat. And we all kept Shabbat. But you keep Shabbat in a family environment, you go to synagogue, and kind of the adults run everything. And then you go to camp, and it's the young people running everything. It's the teenagers, it's the young adults, they're running everything. And first of all, there is so much singing going on. You know, our parents, so they sang 1 or 2 songs, and they kind of, they're boring, they're parents, right? And then you're there at the Shabbat table, and there's bursting in song, and everybody goes into the middle, like the tables are around the room, right? Everybody goes in the middle, and they're dancing to all these songs, but these songs are religious songs. They're hymns. They're praising God. And like our parents would sing these hymns in a kind of dirgy way, you know? But in Bnei Akiva, they made up new tunes for the same hymns that were like, oh, fun and clapping and dancing. And I was just unbelievably thrilled by that. The other thing that was so amazing about it's particularly about Shabbat, first of all, we all dressed on Shabbat, and this was the way Bnei Akiva does it. You wear a white shirt, and if you're a girl, dark skirt, and if you're a boy, dark pants. And that's how everybody dresses. And this is very much Bnei Akiva all over the world, and particularly in Israel. Everything about what camp was, Bnei Akiva camp, was to create a mini Israel.
Oh, wow.
We didn't speak Hebrew, but there was a lot of Hebrew used. All the names of the bunks were in Hebrew. There was a lot of Hebrew. And then we would have these games like acting out, I don't know, the setting up of a kibbutz in 1948. That became part of your thing. If we did, do you know the game Capture the Flag? Did you ever have that game? So Capture the Flag was like a reliving of the War of Independence. And the Israeli flag. You know, everything we did was about Israel, Israeli history. It was, and we had people who were from adults, 1 or 2 adults in the camp who were Israeli.
Okay.
And so so it was really, and I remember years later when I was a teenager and I went to Israel for the first time, and I met someone who had been one of my counselors, okay, who was now in Israel. And I'm trying to ask, I'm just there visiting. I was on a B'nai Akiva summer program in Israel when I was 16. And you know what she said to me? She said, remember B'nai Akiva camp? She said, coming on Aliyah is living B'nai Akiva camp all year round.
I love it.
And it was amazing. Now, of course, life is not camp. Okay.
Right.
You deal with challenges, whatever. But there was something so true about that. And I really believe that my experience in B'nai Akiva, I was a camper, I was a kid, I was a counselor, both in the city. I started a new branch of B'nai Akiva in Cleveland when I was in 12th grade. I was a counselor in the summer camp. So it was my life. I mean, in high school, like school and homework was an afterthought, Life was B'nai Akiva, right? And we were so serious about this, everything. Yeah. And when I made Aliyah, the truth of the matter is I slid right in. And it wasn't just because I spoke Hebrew. I spoke Hebrew because I went to a good Jewish school. It was because through B'nai Akiva, I was already aware of the mentality, of the culture, of everything that had to do with Israel. It was just, that's where I was going, and that's where I meant to be. And B'nai Akiva, in fact, is probably the most successful, I would say, contributor to Aliyah, certainly from North America, and from any country that is a relatively wealthy country. I'm not talking about people who make Aliyah from countries where there's persecution or deprivation. There are other factors going on. But when you talk about people who've made Aliyah from Australia, from North America, from England, from any countries like that, Switzerland, the Scandinavian countries, every one of them practically is coming in through B'nai Akiva.
Through B'nai Akiva.
And then we come to Israel, and it's also very interesting. When you're in B'nai Akiva in the 9th grade, your age group across the world is given a name.
Oh, wow.
And the name always has something to do with some value in Judaism and whatever. The name of my group was Shuva. Shuva means return.
Oh.
And it means return to God in the sense of getting closer to God, and it means return in the sense of return to Israel.
Right.
Okay. Now, everywhere I go, and even I would tell you, I was at the pool a few days ago, and I'm chatting with friends. I mean, people that I see all the time. Something came up about how old we each were, and there were 3 or 4 of us there, all women in this community, some born in Israel, one friend born in England. I'm from the States. And how did we figure out how old we were? What group were you in B'nai Akiva?
That's great.
And I said, I'm Shuva. And she said, Golan. I said, oh, I was a counselor of your age. She's young. That's how it was.
Wow.
It was like crazy. So it's so all encompassing. And of course, for me, the greatest pride was moving to Israel. And then my children went to Israeli B'nai Akiva. They don't have summer camps in B'nai Akiva in the way we do it. In America, the summer camps are like a month long, and some kids go for 2 months even. In Israel, the B'nai Akiva camps are a few days, like 2 days for the younger ones, and the longest is like 5 or 6 days. But these are a different kind of camp. It's camping out. They
are roughing it.
They really are. They go to the woods. They have to bring blankets. They make a tent from blankets. You learn how to do these scouting knots to hang up your tent between the trees, and they hike every day. And it's really roughing it. And no American kid would manage. But for the Israelis, it's just easy and great. So all my kids did that, and some of them also became counselors when they were in high school, and but for me, I went to my kids when they were in 9th grade to get their name, okay? Right. And then it's a big ceremony, it's a big deal, and all the parents are lined up there. And again, we're parents from all over the world. Most of them were born in Israel, but a whole bunch of us have moved, made Aliyah, and we're standing there in B'nai Akiva, and everybody's saying, "So what group were you in? What group are you on?" and that identifies you. And wow. So it's just amazing.
Now, Sondra, you told me one time that you actually watched a Christian movie at B'nai Akiva.
Yeah.
No, Oh, the truth comes out now.
This was crazy. Okay, I didn't understand it all. We were kids, and it was a movie, and I don't know what the movie was called. I just remember it was done by Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it seemed he did this incredible film that was doing like the Holocaust, taking you
Right.
to the creation of the state of Israel, and there was a reference to the Holocaust. As you saw, there was a little bit of footage there about the survivors in the liberation of Auschwitz or Bergen-Belsen or one of those. There was some footage there, and then it referred to the dry bones prophecy of Ezekiel, which is so powerful. And he used that,
Right.
and then you have the creation of Israel, and it was in a very moving film. And then at the end of the film, it seems Jesus is there. I think they cut it off. They stopped it. Okay. So up until we get Israel and everything, and then they're going to start talking about who's Messiah. At that point, they stopped the film. So none of the kids appreciated that, but we had a little bit more of an understanding. We were counselors, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I just said, "Oh, okay." That was a clever thing to do, to take that film and then just cut off the parts that we don't like. But yeah, that's what we did.
But what an amazing, I think you told me about it and I looked it up, and I don't think you can get it anymore, but the little clips that I did see, it looked like an amazing, amazing film that Billy Graham did decades ago. I mean, it's really old, but very well done.
My summer camp, now Tommy, you and I are about the same age, okay? My summer camp showed Billy Graham. Why didn't yours?
Boy, howdy, right?
Have you ever heard of replacement theology?
I have.
We were very deep into those things.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything Jewish. It was I was probably 40s, 40 years old before I ever really heard that we had any relation to Israel at all, hardly. I mean,
wow.
It was kind of like I knew I'd heard Jewish things. There was a sticker that said, my boss is a Jewish carpenter. That was, people would put on their pickup.
You tell me about that, Kim.
They would put on the pickup trucks, and I would go, oh yeah. So, but it was really nothing. We didn't, certainly camps were never. There was never anything that remotely was Jewish, and so it was just, or even like nothing,
right?
Absolutely nothing. So it is kind of strange to have such a close relationship religiously, with our Bibles and everything, and a lot of the discussions that we talk about, and that we would have camps and churches where you would never hear anything about Israel, anything about, and thank God, that the Jews did have things like this to keep their young people inspired, engaged. We need that. There's a different day right now happening, and I think, what we're having, we've got a youth group here right now, 18 to 35 group that's doing a lot of work here. They just went to today. They were at the and it's just a really sad story, but they were at the hummus restaurant where the terrorist event took place. Just and I know this is going to be aired a little bit later, but our guys are learning a lot of things. Christianity needs to learn. Why is it important that Israel gets is coming back? Why are the Jewish people coming back to Israel? Why is that so important? We need to have camps really sharing that, and Absolutely. Really in putting that, because we're losing our young people. I can tell you right now, we've got 25 young people here right now. They are like, they're ready to go, grab Jews and carry them on their shoulders like Israel now.
One of the things that was so special about camp, though, it wasn't even all of the special events, like what you were talking about, singing around the campfire. We did that stuff too, and all that stuff, what everybody does in camp, horseback riding and boating and, swimming and all that stuff. But every day began with prayer. And before breakfast, okay, you went first to the synagogue. And of course, in camp, I'm sure all camps are the same. Their counselors say you have 10 minutes to get dressed. Everybody, you're
Right.
Right. And then everybody has to go, and everybody goes to prayer. So on the one hand, it's forced. Okay, it's part of your schedule, but so is swimming, right? You need to go swim. Everything is part of your schedule. But the difference was, again, when you went to prayers in the synagogue, very often it was a very adult-oriented thing. And when we were at camp, all of the services were run by teenagers, and there was a lot more singing and a lot more inspiration, just doing the stuff that you normally do. One of the most amazing experiences in the camp was actually around the fast of the 9th of Av, what we call Tisha B'Av. And on that day, and this is a day that is in the Bible, actually. In fact, I don't remember the exact place, but in Zechariah, a question arises because Zechariah is living in a time when they're already back in Jerusalem. And he gets a letter from the people in Babylon. They're asking him, okay, well, now that we've started coming back to Jerusalem, do we still have to fast? On these fasts. And the fast day that is the 9th of Av is the fast of the 5th month. It's mentioned in Zechariah. You go, the fast on the 4th month, the 5th month. Okay, these are 4 different fast days that all have mark particular events having to do with the destruction of the first temple. And the temple, then the second temple ended up being destroyed on the same day. So we've been fasting for sure since the destruction of the second temple, where we commemorate both. So again, when you're at home as a kid, you fast. Well, as a kid, you don't fast. But as you get older, 11, 12 years old, you start to fast. You may go to synagogue. And then you sit around kind of being bored most of the day, Here, I remember at night, after the prayers, you read the book of Lamentations. But you don't just read it in camp. Everybody sits on the ground, all the lights are turned off, and everybody's given a little candle. Okay, and they're holding a little, all right? And then after Lamentations is over, you're sitting around, and it's usually the rabbi of the camp or someone else is engaging in discussion. And of course, the little kids go off to bed. But the teenagers, you're sitting there, and they're telling you stories about the Inquisition, the Holocaust, all the different things that happened in our history of persecution that come straight out of the destruction of the temple. And here we are living at a time where we're able to go back to Israel. But this is a day that we focus on the exile and the destruction. But there's always this idea we have to remember this, we have to internalize it, but that we can now go back to Israel. And you come out of an event like that, number one, you really understand the meaning of this 9th of Av. Right. It's not just a day you mark, you do what you do, but it's so deeply in you.
Wow.
And then you also understand, my goodness, we are in restoration. Israel, what that means. And I think that experience, and it was very interesting. I had a discussion once with not recently, maybe 10 years ago. Okay. I had met a new friend at that point, and she wasn't religious, but she was somewhat traditional. And she went to a Jewish summer camp in Canada that was affiliated with the conservative movement, but did very similar things to what I was doing, inspiring Zionism and everything. She decided that she wanted to do a program, but she was going to do it, I think, on Holocaust Memorial Day, but it's actually a program that was done in camp for the 9th of Av. And she kept that it was a whole script, and there's a whole thing, and different people take parts, and it was very moving. And she had it with her, and she says, I want to recreate this. And she invited all these friends, and we followed the script. We were all women and men in our 40s or 50s, and we were going back to the script that she kept all these years from her time in summer camp, where they had this 9th of Av celebration, commemoration. It's amazing how powerful these things are.
Wow. I have a couple questions for you, Sondra. One is, did they bring in special speakers, or was there anything like super inspiring that you remember from camp that really, I don't know, solidified your Zionism or your call to Aliyah? I mean, I know you had that in you from a very young age, but did it get cemented, I guess, at camp, or was there a particular watershed event that happened? And then the second question is, tell us a little bit about your summer in Israel when you were 16 and some of
Okay,
your
so first of
experiences
all,
there.
we did, when I was in camp, we didn't have special speakers.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes a rabbi would come up, like the rabbi of one of the congregations whose kids were in that camp. Sometimes
Okay.
they come up for a weekend, but I never found them particularly inspiring. I mean, they would do a teaching, but they were not as good as the young people were. So everybody, all the counselors, the heads of the camp, everybody was part of it. I'll give you one example. When I was a counselor in the camp, this guy who had been my counselor was now the head of the camp. He was the head counselor. Okay. And there was a loudspeaker that woke us up every morning. And he would get on the loudspeaker. He had a terrible voice. But he'd get on the loudspeaker and he would sing this song, which it's in Hebrew, and it's a song from Israel, and it's not even a song. It's kind of like a chant or something. But what was he saying? He's saying, he says, Israel, trust in God, awake to serve the Lord.
Okay.
And that's how he woke us up on the loudspeakers that went all through the camp. That was our alarm clock. Israel, trust in the Lord, wake up to serve God.
All right.
Isn't that great?
That's fantastic. I love it.
So this was the kind of stuff that was little. It was just, but and he wasn't a serious guy. He was like an ordinary guy. Okay.
Right.
And that was part of the charm, that the same people who were making jokes and doing wild and crazy things was the people who said, wake up to serve the Lord, And
Right.
that was also part of it, that it was both inspiring and fun at the same time. It wasn't serious, like you sit there and you think all day and you meditate. It wasn't like that at all. It was just really good. So that's the kind of stuff. I heard, though, later, I know I made Aliyah. We were fairly young. But my sister and my brother, both of who stayed in the States longer, and both were back in Cleveland, both of them went out to camp as adults, as doctors. They're both doctors. Well, my sister, my brother-in-law is a doctor. I remember they would go out very often. He would take vacation from the hospital and he'd go out and he'd be the camp doctor. But the two of them were also running all kinds of inspirational activities and stuff. And they were really good at it because they'd grown up in camp. So so the next generation, my generation, did much better as adults than our parents who didn't have these camps. It was a very different time. It was a much poorer time, and they were all immigrants, and they didn't know about camps. So that today, I think they do have more guest people. And I'm very, very good friend of mine who we were together in Cleveland, and we were counselors, we were campers, everything. We were very, very close friends. And he lives now in Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion. And he, to this day, is a director of camp. He lives here in Israel, but he goes back and forth. And in the summer, for 2-3 months, he's in the States at this camp. And I know that he, having come from Israel, running the camp, which is also a new phenomenon that we didn't have in those years, he gets almost all his counselors from Israel. There's Israeli young people that come for the summer. And he has many more people coming into the camp, whether as guest speakers or as staff, who are themselves Israeli. And so I think that is really cementing the relationship with Israel even more than it used to be.
That's fantastic.
And what else did you ask me about?
Oh, so some of your stories from when you were 16 and you came for the summer, you came for...
I'll tell you something. I was in a different time. I came to Israel for the first time in 1973. I was just before my 16th birthday, and it was a B'nai Akiva program. And it was a very small program at the time. It was like 30 some of us, all the same age. Okay. And we came and we spent 6 weeks in Israel. And it was great. We did not have an air conditioned bus. Actually, we saw a lot of other tours coming and they got the air conditioned buses. And we always used to say, oh, they're sissies. They're not roughing it. They're not doing anything roughing. As we were in the back of the truck.
You were pioneers.
We were. Okay. We were in the back of a truck. It was a closed truck with these open windows, kind of slats. Okay. And 4 vertical benches. So we were all just sitting on these benches, bumping along. No shock absorbers on that truck, bumping along. We hiked all over the place. It was always hot. It was July and August. There wasn't an air conditioner to be found. There was almost no air conditioning in Israel in those years anyway. But it was it was such an amazing experience. And we could do whatever we wanted. We had a program all day long. But when we were in Jerusalem, for example, and I think we were in Jerusalem for about 2 weeks, then in the evening after dinner, we were free. We could do whatever we wanted. We could go to the city. We could walk. We could hitch. We could take a bus. We go to town, to King George Street and Jaffa Street and get pizza and falafel and just hang out and have a good time, meet Israelis, do whatever we wanted, come back. And we did that all the time. Well, a number of years later, when I was already living in Israel and I had a nephew who was the same age on the same program, which by then had grown to air-conditioned buses, and there were about 8 buses full of kids. I mean, there were hundreds of kids that were coming by that point on this program. And they come to our house, and it turns out they had to get special permission. I mean, their parents had to sign authorization for everywhere they went, and they were chaperoned, and we had to pick them up. I mean, when I went for a free Shabbat, the bus left us off 2 different places, the Jerusalem Central Bus Station, the Tel Aviv Central Bus Station. You got off whichever one you want, and you went to wherever you went, and you just had to be back on Sunday. And we all were back. It wasn't a big deal. You're right. Oh my gosh, today. So when my nephew comes, so the kids decide they want to go Saturday night to Jerusalem, to the same place that I was always going to, get some pizza, center Jerusalem. And they wanted me to arrange for them to get a driver and take them there because they weren't allowed to take buses. I don't know why. It was such a crazy thing. Okay. And I was getting calls all Friday afternoon from these kids, my nephew's friends' parents. Oh no, is it okay? Can they go to Jerusalem? Is it dangerous? What are they going to do? Who are they going to meet? What are they going to eat? What are they going to smoke? I looked at them and I said, hello? I mean, if you trust your kids enough to send them 7,000 miles away, let them go out on a Saturday night. What's the big deal? And I just realized how things had changed. And when we were in Israel, our parents had no idea what we were doing.
I would say, how often did you call home? Yeah, how often did you call home?
You couldn't at all. There was no such thing. There was no long distance phone calling to America. None. Maybe it existed.
No email. No internet.
No, I wrote a couple of these aerograms that would take. By the time they got there, I was already home. They had no idea, but they had trusted. They weren't worried at all. They figured we were part of an organization. There was somewhat responsibility. If something terrible happened, they'd get a call. But nothing terrible happened. So what could be wrong? But we were totally independent. Totally.
What
in
the amazing memories, though.
Kim, I'm hearing Sondra. It's really funny to me because she's talking about being the tough, the girl, and really making fun of all the cushy people in the air conditioned buses.
Yes.
But when she comes to HaYovel, that's exactly the way she talks. She tells all of our guys, you could be staying in really nice hotels right now. And
it's so true. It's so true.
What happened? Here's a woman that would be part of what we're doing.
Okay, but I was 16. You see, I think the people are coming to you didn't do it. They were 16, so they have to get it out of their system.
Right.
But
I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy.
Okay, so my kids would love going to sleepover camp here in Israel, which, as I said, was a tent that you made with a blanket. You slept on the ground and whatever, and they would love doing that. And then when they'd come back from camp, they would say to us, oh, come on, let's do camping. And I would always say to them, for this, there is B'nai Akiva. If you want to go camping, go with B'nai Akiva. You're coming with me. You're getting a bed.
I'm going to a hotel.
I loved doing camping when I was 16, 17, 18, 19.
Oh, yeah.
you know, and that was it. I had enough.
Oh, I love it.
Good.
But such great memories. I mean, you think about summer and we think about just, you know, how short childhood is, you know, looking back. It's such an amazing time that God, I think, creates for us to really set some foundations and set some things that direct us for the rest of our lives and have experiences. Yes.
You remind me of something. I have to tell you the story. Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, there's a background to the story. Okay. The background is when I was 20 in New York, I had the opportunity to be a counselor at a weekend that was not from B'nai Akiva. Okay. And the idea was to just inspire these kids to be more Jewish. And I went to this weekend, gung-ho with my Zionism, and extremely disappointed because nobody was talking about Israel.
Oh.
So, I mean, they weren't anti-Israel, but it just wasn't their main subject. And as counselors, we were supposed to, you know, walk around and find groups of kids and sit down and talk to them and inspire them. And so I found a group of kids, girls, who were sitting outside we were on the girls' area, you know, wherever, girls' sleeping area. And outside one of the rooms there in the hallway, there was a bunch of girls sitting there, and I joined them, and we started talking, and I started talking about Israel. And it was like most of these kids had really never heard much about Israel, and we had a little discussion going, and we talked about Israel. Okay. I came home from that weekend. I said, this was the biggest waste of time. I talked to people. They never cared. They don't know they didn't care. Okay. Years and years later, I'd already been living in Israel for 10 years, and I go to a bar mitzvah of a friend. And at that bar mitzvah is a very old friend of mine who had recently moved to Israel. He was in my camp with me. We knew each other. And he had this wife who he had married after we had moved to Israel. And so I was meeting her for the first time, and we're starting to chat. And she says to me, I know you. And I said, okay, how do I know you? She said, I was in that circle.
Wow.
And she said, you changed my life. You see, I'm living in Israel now.
Wow.
Okay. Amazing.
Wow.
Anyway, so that has always done so much for me. So a number of years ago, my son became a counselor on that same B'nai Akiva summer program in Israel. Their counselors some come with them from the States and some are Israeli. So my son did this for 2 or 3 years. He was the Israeli counselor. At one point, they brought them into our community for Shabbat and divided the kids up to different homes. And then they invited me to come and speak to the kids Shabbat afternoon. Now, I mean, I like to speak, but I'm not so good with these teenagers. I'm not sure where they are. And these were spoiled American kids, and I didn't know what I was supposed to say. Okay. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and we're talking a bit. And then I went around the room and I asked them how they felt about Israel and do they want to move to Israel? How do they feel about it? And a lot of them were saying, yeah, they love Israel. They've had such an amazing time. They're so inspired. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then I said to them, hold this with you. You're going to come back to the States and you're going to be very inspired about Israel. And you're going to tell your parents you want to move to Israel. And they're going to say, you'll grow out of it. Don't grow out of it. You can and should make decisions like this today when you're 16.
Yeah.
Like we all said, the events that happen to us at these ages and these inspiring programs can change our lives if we let them. And that was my message to these kids. Hold on to this. Now, I don't know what happened and how many of them moved to Israel. I hope some of them did. I have no idea. But to me, that is such an important message when the kids come back from these camps, to be encouraged that the commitments they make when they're 16 can remain real commitments. Life does not have to get in the way.
Amen.
You can live alongside these commitments.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's good.
That is fantastic. Oh, well, summer camp, we're all hot and sweaty and having a great time, right? I'm sure, share with us your summer camp memories and thoughts. We'd love to hear back from you. Write it in the comments below. Send us an email. We always love hearing from you guys. If there's a topic you want Tommy and Sondra and I to discuss, let us know that. We're always looking for ideas. And great talking to you guys. Always fun. Always a blast.
Same here. Thank you.
Great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that film. And we have lots more film content and emails and articles that I'm sure you will enjoy as well. Check out our website at cfoic.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that right from the homepage. I know you will really enjoy the content that will land in your inbox on a regular basis. Hope to see you soon.